J'ouvre maintenant la séance. Je vous souhaite
I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting 75 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs.
October 3rd, 2022. The committee is resuming its study on the experience of women's veterans. La réunion d'aujourd'hui se déroule sous forme hybride et nous avons des membres et des témoins.
Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, and we have members and witnesses who are attending remotely. So, as you know, this room has a high-performance audio system, but nevertheless, I ask you to be very careful when speaking, not to put the earpiece close to the microphone. You will also note that our interpreters are not here present physically in the room, but are working remotely. Nevertheless, it can cause a disruption or can cause harm to our interpreters if the connection is not perfect. So I ask you to please be very careful about that. And in accordance with our routine motion regarding the connection tests, those tests have been conducted and all the witnesses have been tested prior to the meeting. So before we welcome our witnesses, I would like to give you a warning. We are going to be discussing experiences related to mental health, which may be triggering to people here with us, viewers, members, or their staff who have had similar experiences. If you feel distressed or if you need help, please do not hesitate to advise the clerk.
We may be discussing experiences related to general health and mental health. This may be triggering to viewers, members, or staff with similar experiences. If you feel distressed or need help, please advise the clerk. J'aimerais maintenant souhaiter la bienvenue à nos témoins.
I would now like to welcome our witnesses.
We have Linda Rizzo-Michelin, Chief Operating Officer, Sexual Misconduct Support Center. We have Shobha Ranganathan, Director, Program and Services, Sexual Misconduct Support Center. And Colonel Peter Rowe, Director, Casualty Support Management. And from Department of Veterans Affairs, we have Ami Meunier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Commemoration and Public Affairs Branch by video conference. Pamela Harrison, Senior Director, Engagement and Events by video conference. And Dr. Sid Kurshen, Chief of Medical Officer, also by video conference. So you're going to have a 5 minute for your opening remarks, and we're going to go in that order. I'm going to start with Ami Meunier, and then Colonel Peter Rowe, and finally Linda Rizzo-Michelin. So, Ami Meunier, vous êtes en ligne, vous avez 5 minutes pour votre discours.
Ami Meunier, you're online and you have 5 minutes for your speech.
Mr. Chair and members, for having us here today. In the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land upon which I testify today is the unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Epiquid is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship, and we pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who've occupied this island for over 12,000 years. Women from all backgrounds have been key contributors to the Canadian Armed Forces, proving their equal commitment through sheer dedication and bravery. Of the 461,000 veterans of the CAF today, 15% are women. They represent the fastest growing cohort within the veteran population. As of February 2023, women represented 13% of VAC veteran clients. As we've heard, many women veterans experience difficulty adjusting to post-service life and can find losing their military identity a challenge. They can face difficulties such as needing assistance with the activities of daily life, periods of homelessness, and significantly lower levels of social support. Cela signifie nous concentrer étroitement sur la manière dont nous pouvons ajuster nos processus.
This means that there are many ways in which we can adjust our process
afin que les vétérans obtiennent les services et le soutien
women
dont elles
veterans
ont
to obtain
besoin,
the
quand,
services that
où
they
et
need,
comment elles
where,
en ont
when,
besoin.
and how they need it.
Since 2019, the Minister of Veterans Affairs made a commitment to host an annual forum to discuss specific challenges women face after service, with the most recent forum taking place earlier this year. VAC has continued to listen to and elevate the lived experiences of women veterans to strengthen our understanding. De plus, ACC continue de travailler à la mise en œuvre de services de transition plus inclusifs pour les vétérans en travaillant avec nos collègues des forces armées canadiennes et du ministère de la Défense nationale. En fait, cette semaine, notre comité directeur conjoint FAC-ACC s'est réuni et a convenu de faire du soutien aux femmes militaires et aux vétérans un point permanent à l'ordre du jour. VAC's effort to make inclusive disability benefits.
Excuse me, Mrs. Meunier, we have a problem.
Yeah, I beg your pardon. I beg the pardon of the witness as well. But there's a very strange echo that we're getting, very disruptive. So. You got two mics on. No. It's what she's speaking as well as the interpretation in a bit of an echo. So.
Okay, well, okay, so sorry, Mrs. Meunier, we're going to take a short break in order to correct that situation. So, meeting suspended. Nous reprenons la séance.
We are now resuming this meeting. So, Mrs. Meunier, please, our apologies. You still have 3 minutes for your speech. Go ahead, please.
VAC's effort to make inclusive disability benefit decisions continues with the review of our entitlement eligibility guidelines and table of disability to ensure they are inclusive. VAC added a dedicated team to processing disability benefit claims from applicant women veterans. Plusieurs autres initiatives importantes sont actuellement.
Many other initiatives are currently underway at the department to help the veterans. For example, Dr. Sid Kirshen, who is here today, she's a champion for veterans' health.
A regular feature dedicated to women veterans in our monthly newsletter, Salute. Au cours de 3 derniers mois, nous avons organisé 3 tables rondes.
In the last 3 months, we have organized 3 roundtables with veterans on the subject of employment, homelessness, and the concept of a veteran council.
Veterans with others in the community through the sharing of stories. Over the past few weeks, we have recorded 19 new interviews with women veterans who shared their experience, and we intend to make those available across all of our channels for others to view. We are increasing educational content and learning material which profile the service and sacrifice of women CAF members and veterans, and taking more steps to engage educators and youth to ensure awareness of this information. Pour l'année 22-23,
For the year 22-23, $250,000 from the Veteran and Families Wellbeing Fund was awarded to the Research Institute of the McGill University Health Center. And a total of $70,000 was awarded to the Canadian Women Wellbeing Initiative, whose project offers stress reduction training for veterans and their family members.
The Government of Canada funds 2 centers of excellence, the Atlas Institute and the Chronic Pain Center of Excellence. Both centers are in the process of conducting research projects related to women veterans' health. Various OSI clinics funded by VAC have started group treatments focusing specifically on women's needs, including mindfulness, wellness groups, and women's groups for military sexual trauma. VAC's veteran well-being community health needs assessment is well underway to develop an inclusive, holistic vision of the health and well-being of Canadian veterans, with a particular interest on equity-deserving groups such as women. Monsieur le Président, ancien combattant prend des nombreux...
Mr. Chair, Veteran Affairs is taking many steps to ensure that veterans receive the support and services they need and deserve. But we recognize that there is still much to be done, which is why we look forward to this committee's recommendation on how we can improve the experience of women veterans. Thank you very much, Madame Meunier, and we are also really looking forward to this report. I am now going to invite Colonel Peter Rowe for the next 5 minutes. It is your turn. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Colonel Peter Rowe. Well, actually, just to start, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the traditional territory of the Algonquin-Anishinaabe Nation, and I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our commitment to meaningful reconciliation with the Indigenous leaders and peoples across the land. My name is Colonel Peter Rowe. I'm the Director of Casualty Support Management of the Department of National Defence and Canadian Armed Forces. And as such, I oversee the casualty support administration provided to CAF members and their families when deaths and serious injuries occur. I'm also responsible for our National Military Cemetery, the Canadian Armed Forces HOPE program, which provides peer support to CAF members and their families who are bereaved by the death of a family member, and our Operational Stress Injury Social Support Program, OSIS, which is why I've been called before you today. The health and wellness of women veterans is very important. I am pleased to be here today to participate in your study on the experiences of women veterans and talk to you about our OSIS program, which provides peer support to CAF members, veterans, and their families who are living with operational stress injuries, also known as OSIs. OSIS is one of the many resources that the Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group offers to assist ill and injured members, veterans, and their families. Our OSIS program is a national peer support network that has existed since 2001 and is delivered in partnership by the Department of National Defence and Veterans Affairs Canada. It is a critical, non-clinical addition to the mental health support of both departments and offers a wide range of services to any serving or retired members of the Canadian Armed Forces who suffer from an OSI and to their families. An operational stress injury for OSIS is any persistent psychologically difficulty resulting from operations in the military, which can include training incidents, domestic operations, international operations, or simply burnout from the stressful demands of military life. OSIS, as a non-clinical program, does not require a formal diagnosis of an OSI for access. Instead, it focuses on supporting members, veterans, and their families in dealing with the impacts and social behaviors associated with operational stress injuries. Recognizing the challenges of seeking clinical treatment, OSIS provides a safe space for individuals with similar experiences to access directly and obtain support. Given the risks of isolation and stigma for those affected by OSIs, the program aims to eliminate these factors and to promote mental wellness and recovery. For someone living with an OSI, the road to wellness can be hard to navigate. Peer support connects with them, an understanding ear, a supportive community of people with similar experiences to help set goals and provides effective resources that can help. Breaking down the stigma and providing social peer support has led many CAF members, veterans, and their families to seek the help they need and to change their lives for the better. Our OSIS team consists of approximately 70 staff across the country and a network of 79 trained volunteers who bring firsthand lived experience, and practical knowledge of what it is like to struggle with an OSI or to live with someone with an OSI. Peer support is one-on-one or is provided one-on-one or in group sessions. And on average, OSIS supports or has approximately 2,000 peer contacts per month, 80% of which are veterans and their families, and 20% are CAF members and their families. We are currently evolving our programs to support diversity and inclusiveness. We now have specialty support groups for Indigenous peers, separated marital status groups, and 2 regional women's groups with a 3rd in planning. These groups aim to provide a safe space for members, veterans, and families with unique experiences to receive trauma-informed peer support that considers the circumstances of each group's experiences and military service and the different sources of OSIs. Finally, I would like to mention, as a success in the recent months, we, in partnership with the Toronto Police Services, the Military Veterans Wellness Program was established. The Military Veterans Wellness Program has been adopted and well accepted by all police agencies in Ontario and is soon rolling out in Regina, Saskatchewan. The RCMP also intends to adopt this program in the near future, and this program creates an additional referral mechanism for veterans in need into OSIS. Thank you very much, merci, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Colonel Rowe, and welcome to the committee. Et pour la deuxième fois, nous accueillons.
And for the second time, we are welcoming Mrs. Linda Rizzo-Michelin, who today will be wearing a different hat. So you have 5 minutes. Merci. Thank you, Chair.
I really appreciate that. Since 2015, the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Centre has been supporting Canadian Armed Forces members who have been affected by sexual misconduct. Over the last few years, the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Centre has undergone many expansions, and today, the SMS... Oh.
Excuse me, we have... Okay, wow, let's check out. Just 1 second. Yeah. You didn't? Yeah. Mrs. Michelin, could you say your last sentence, please, so we will...
Yeah, there's a delay between your mic and your piece.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to do a check again? Is that any better? Are you still hearing the same thing?
Yeah. Okay, so it seems that it's better to take off the earpiece in order to listen to... But how about translation? Monsieur Désilé, est-ce que ça va en français? Ça va très bien?
Mr. Désilé, you can hear the translation, no problem? Okay.
Oh, okay. On va continuer, so listen directly to... I don't know if Ms. Blaney on the web, on virtual, is that okay for you?
Everything was good for us, yeah.
Great, thanks. Okay, so continue. You have more than four minutes. Okay, thank you.
Over the past few years, the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Centre has gone many expansions, and today, the SMSRC provides support to those affected by sexual misconduct over the age of 16, including current CAF members, former CAF members and veterans, current and former Department of National Defence public service employees, cadets, junior Canadian Rangers, and families. We also provide expert advice, guidance, and recommendations to the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces on matters related to sexual misconduct. The SMSRC operates independently from the Canadian Armed Forces chain of command and reports directly to the Deputy Minister of National Defence. As we know, many women veterans have experienced sexual misconduct during their time in uniform, and the impacts of these events have been and continue to be profound. The SMSRC offers services that are supportive, inclusive, and confidential. And I'll take a few moments to highlight some of the programs and services that are available. Individuals affected by sexual misconduct can call the SMSRC 24/7 support line for confidential support, information on options, guidance on supporting others, and referrals to care and service organizations. They will be connected with a trained counselor in the official language of their choice, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, toll-free by calling the 1-844-750-1648 number. Veterans who have come forward and used our line have expressed issues regarding some of the barriers in accessing support and care. They mentioned it was hard to advocate for themselves. That brings us to our next program, the Response and Support Coordination Program. Individuals can obtain continuing support and assistance from a dedicated coordinator. Upon calling the SMSRC, individuals can receive various support services from their assigned coordinator, such as information and referrals to resources and services, advocacy, and accompaniments to appointments, meetings, or proceedings. For example, some women veterans seek help from their RSC to fill out the VAC forms or accompany them to appointments or advocate on their behalf for VAC services. The Independent Legal Assistance Program facilitates access to legal services for individuals who have experienced military sexual misconduct. In the current first phase of the program, the MSRC is providing reimbursements for eligible legal costs incurred by those who have experienced military sexual misconduct. The Peer Support Program is currently being developed in collaboration with colleagues of Veterans Affairs Canada for current and former Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and D&D public service employees who have experienced sexual misconduct. Our current services include an online discussion platform and formal group sessions. The SMSRC Restorative Engagement Program provides class members of the Sexual Misconduct Class Action Settlement with various options to share with representatives of the Department of National Defence aspects of their experience, impacts, or insights as they relate to sexual misconduct. The Community Support for Sexual Misconduct Survivors Grant Program funds projects led by non-for-profit Canadian community-based service providers. These organizations have capacity and expertise to provide services and initiatives for those that have been affected. Projects include such things as support for sexual assault centers, virtual platforms, research and academic institutions, and counseling services. The Community Consultations Initiatives has been established within the SMSRC to engage directly with those that have been affected by sexual misconduct. These consultations help to obtain feedback and inform our existing and future SMSRC support services, programs, and initiatives to better reflect the community's needs. Finally, the SMSRC Outreach Program uses different ways to reach our various clients, like our veterans or our women veterans, in order to increase awareness about the various programs and services available. We encourage those that have been affected by sexual misconduct to reach out to the SMSRC through the 1-844-750-1648 number. Thank you again for this opportunity to be here today, and we do look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mislin, Rizzo Mislin. So now we're going to start the period of questions, and we're going to start with the 6-minute questions, and I invite, first of all, Mr. Blake Richards for 6 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've got a number of important questions for each of you. However, first, for reasons I'll explain in a moment, I'm going to have to move a motion that we're unable to deal with during our committee business, or finish dealing with during our committee business that we had scheduled on Tuesday. So I don't know if it's required, but I believe it is, Mr. Chair. I'll read it back into the record during this meeting. So I move that in relation to its study on the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs call the Deputy Commander of Military Personnel, Lieutenant General Lise Burgon, to appear before the committee on or before December 7th, 2023, and order the production of all memoranda, briefing notes, emails, correspondence, or any other records of conversations or communications, including text messages, Microsoft Teams messages, WhatsApp messages, Signal messages, or other electronic messaging with regard to the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, transmitted since February 1st of 2021 between the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Privy Council Office, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Privy Council Office, the Privy Council Office and the Office of the Prime Minister, the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Prime Minister. Provided that these documents shall be provided to the clerk of the committee in both official languages and without redaction no later than December 13th of 2023. I've given the rationale for the motion, but I'll just briefly just indicate for those who are watching or with us today.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order.
Mr. Richards, point of order,
I believe
Mr.
that
Casey.
the appropriate procedure to take, because the last meeting was adjourned, was a motion to resume debate as opposed to a reintroduction of the same motion. A motion to resume debate is a dilatory motion which goes straight to a vote.
Sorry, I have to consult the clerk about
So
that.
just on that point before you do so,
Yeah.
Chair, I believe it's within my rights to move a motion, and I am doing so. So I don't
Point of order.
believe there's a need for a dilatory motion. We
Yeah,
can move the
okay.
motion.
I have to finish with the first point of order first, and I'm going to go back to you, Mr. B. Okay. Well, the clerk would like to suspend a minute in order to consult his superior, and I'm going to come back to you. So, meeting suspended. right? So he's not able to do that because this motion was discussed at our last meeting, but he can move a dilatory motions in asking to debate that. So, and the dilatory motion should be, we should go to vote, and you will be able to continue on that motion. Yeah, but just before, is that okay, Mr. May? Okay, perfect. Mr. Richards.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. In that case, I move that we resume debate on the motion that I had moved at the last meeting.
So now we have to go to vote. Okay, so we have to go to vote on that. We have to vote on that, and so I'm going to ask the clerk to. I'm going to ask the clerk, please, members. Yeah, members. I'm sorry. Let's go back. So I'm going to ask the clerk to take the vote on that dilatory motion. So, please.
So that we resume debate on the motion of MP Richards. Ms. Bennett. Mr. Casey.
No.
Mr. May.
No.
Mr. Miao.
No.
Mr. Sarai.
No.
Mr. Dowdell.
Yes.
Mr. Richards.
Yes.
Mr. Tolmie.
Yes.
Ms. Wagenthal. Monsieur Desilets.
Malheureusement, non.
Ms. Blaney.
No.
4 yeas, 7 nays.
Okay, so the motion is defeated. So sorry for our witnesses online and here. So we're going to come back to the and Mr. Richard, you still have 6 minutes for questions. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And that's unfortunate because I think it's important for those who served in Afghanistan to have the opportunity to know what has actually happened with the interference that the PMO provided in their monument. But I guess that'll wait till sometime in February, I suppose, unfortunately, instead of now. So it would have been nice to have just been able to deal with the motion quickly and come back to our witnesses, but we'll just be doing straight back to the witnesses. So that's fine. I will start with a question for, let's see, Ms. Mounier. You had mentioned in your opening remarks that you have an annual forum. I can't remember exactly what you called it, but it was essentially to listen to the challenges that women veterans face. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about what you heard, what was heard at this year's forum, and what changes will VAC be undertaking as a result of what you heard from women at this year's forum?
Sure, of course. So the forum was held in February of this year. It was attended by, it was a hybrid event, both virtual and in person, with over 250 individuals participating. Some of the key themes that we heard is that we need to strengthen an inclusive and intersectional GBA plus mindset within Veterans Affairs and the CAF D&D, including marginalized and underserved voices with lived experience in the design, development, and evaluation of programs, policies, and services, as well as commemorations, as well as continuing to lead on concrete actions towards more equitable futures for all veterans. We also heard a bit about the Office of Women and LGBTQ2 Veterans, for which I'm the ADM responsible presently, to have an expanded focus that's inclusive of all marginalized veteran groups, in particular recognizing the cultural needs of Two-Spirit veterans as well as First Nation, Inuit, Métis, Black and racialized veterans when addressing the needs of marginalized veterans. The panelists and other individuals there called for the department to diversify and enhance ways we engage and include veterans in our program policy development, addressing gender biases and providing individually focused trauma-informed research care and support for women and 2S LGBTQ2+ veterans. The forum in February was inclusive of both women and 2S LGBTQ2I plus veterans. We are actively working on the next upcoming forum, which we expect to take place in the new year.
Okay, I've got a question as well for, I guess, Colonel Rowe, maybe probably for you. You can refer it if you think it's necessary. We've heard throughout the study from women who talk about the fact that much of their equipment or their kit doesn't really, work for, a woman's body. And some of the injuries and challenges that are faced as a result of that, and in particular, even to the point where we've heard testimony about women having to alter their bodies rather than having the kit or the equipment altered to suit their bodies. I wonder if you could speak to that and tell us what is CAF doing to try to ensure that the equipment and kit for women is appropriate for their use.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Fortunately, I don't have much experience in that area, and so I don't think I'm really the right person to be answering to that.
Would you be able to have whoever would be the appropriate person at D&D provide us with a written response to that question?
Trying to think of who that might be. I'm not sure who's involved in developing the equipment for the Canadian Armed Forces.
But could you commit to going back and ensuring that happens? Otherwise, the committee would be required to have a motion, I guess, to ask the department to provide that. Oh, looks like Ms. Rizzo, you have maybe.
I don't have an answer, but our parliamentary affairs staff are here, so they can take care of that question.
So you'd be willing to commit to bringing that back to the committee? Okay, thank you. We'll leave that one with you to do that then. Okay, that's much appreciated. We also, and I don't know, this probably is best place for Ms. Mounier, but whoever feels appropriate to answer this. There's a lot of recurring or very common injuries that we hear about in certain trades in the military. One really good example we hear about often is hearing loss and tinnitus. And I'm wondering if you could give us a sense whether you think a presumptive injury list or something along that lines would make sense, considering that there is no doubt reoccurring conditions that are faced by many former members of the Canadian Armed Forces.
I might start off by highlighting that we, and I talked about it in my intro remarks, what we have are entitlement eligibility guidelines, and those serve as a decision-making tool for individuals to link up trades, years of service, repetitive injuries.
Sorry to interrupt, yep. But I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, because I appreciate and understand that exists, but we often hear about, these types of claims. They're so common. So would it make sense not to, put veterans through a long and exhaustive process to get something that they're going to get in the end anyway? Let's just presume that it's an injury that they have received from their service and provide it to them. That's what I'm getting at here.
Yeah. Quickly, please, Mrs. Mounier, please.
We're certainly always looking at ways to improve the processes. Hearing loss and tinnitus would be decisions that are made actually quite quickly. I believe the current turnaround time is somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So we're always looking at ways of approaching applications to render decisions much faster.
Thank you very much. And now I invite MP Randip Sarai for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you for all being here. I just had a quick mention to the clerk, if you can in the future get the names a bit larger in a larger font. I'm 48 now, and my eyesight is not that great, and I have to squint. But I believe it's Ms. Mounier, so I'll have my question to her. Thank you for being here today. We heard a lot from witnesses that programs and policies have to take into consideration the different needs of women veterans. Can you kind of help explain to what Veterans Affairs Canada is doing to take into account the different needs women veterans in your programs and policies?
Thank you for that question, and I might ask some of my colleagues to join in the answer. So I would start off by saying that making sure that we have a good understanding of the data and the actual experience of individuals, and our community health needs assessment will go a long way in helping us to refine our understanding of the unique and different challenges individuals may have throughout their life course, and in particular accessing benefits and services from the department. With GBA Plus review and the GBA Plus policy, we're systematically going through all of our current policies to ensure that they have the right lens approach and there's no unintentional biases or inadvertent obstacles built into them. As well, on the service delivery side, looking through all of the operational tools. I mentioned the table of disabilities and the entitlement eligibility guidelines, and it is looking at each one of those to ensure that they represent the impact or the experience of gender diversity. So I think there's a lot of ways that we are approaching how to improve our benefits and services and the delivery of those benefits and services. So in summary, I'd say it's about understanding the data and the actual experience, listening to the stories and lived experience by individuals such as those that have been part of this committee study, making sure that we are building new programs and policies that take into account all of diverse experience, and then operationalizing those, as well as looking at everything that we have in place currently to make sure that they are meeting the needs of a diverse population of veterans. My colleague Pam may have more to add.
Sure.
Hi, thank you for the question. Yes, the testimony that we've heard from more than 20 women who have bravely come forward to this committee to share their stories will go a long way in helping us to make changes both within Veterans Affairs Canada and the Canadian Armed Forces. Their testimony was powerful, and being here today is an opportunity for us to thank not only this committee, but all of those witnesses that have come forward to share their powerful stories, and so that we can learn more. We're also on our own part collecting those stories, meeting with women veterans as often as we can to discuss the topics that are important to them, and also to record their stories, to share their stories out, which storytelling we've been told is important so that they are connected to their community and they understand that they're not alone in what they've experienced in service and post-service life. Thank you.
Thank you. And just going on that, witnesses had told us some of the challenges they faced in terms of their reproductive health. One example we heard was that it's hard to accept the fact that a physical or mental injury associated with one's service had an impact on their one's own reproductive health or childbirth. What's your strategy to address these issues, particularly for women facing them? Again, Ms. Meunier or Ms. Harrison?
I might look to my colleague, Dr. Sid Cochet.
Okay.
For sure. Thank you. Yes, we've heard those stories, and this would come through to the department through an application for a disability, and each case would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And if it was related to their service in any way, then we would look to support that veteran.
But have you looked at these type of situations to see the correlation? Has there been any work done, or any scientific evidence, or asking medical doctors who might be able to help? Because traditionally, obviously, it probably wasn't something that was looked at, but with the entry of women into the armed forces and these type of injuries happening, I think it's something that should be taken into consideration. So I don't know if there has been a strategy on that.
Thank you. And you're correct. There's not been much research done on that. And as cases come forward, we don't have any data right now to trend per se, but we are working closely with our colleagues from the Canadian Armed Forces in doing research on reproductive health in women, serving members and veterans. And so we look to find out more in this area as we hear the stories come to us.
Sure. And my last question, I had a veteran call me the other day, and the question is, there's a need for case manager in particular to receive training about trauma awareness. What type of training does a typical staff at VAC receive in terms of understanding trauma awareness?
Thank you. I'll take that question if my colleagues don't mind. In 2020, we started providing all frontline staff with trauma-informed care. And so that's the core and the basis of training, but they receive more training on screening for suicidal risk, road to mental readiness. They have a progression of training that is provided to the frontline staff and all other staff in the department, in fact.
Merci beaucoup. Et maintenant, nous allons passer la parole à Monsieur.
Thank you very much. And now we'll give the floor to Mr. Luc Desilets for the next 6 minutes, please. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, colleagues. I'd like to return briefly to the previous point. I think there's a question of procedure, which results in the fact that I was not ready to get on board with that because I have some amendments as well, and I didn't want us to take any time away from our witnesses, quite simply, because I can see that there's a little quid pro quo involved. My questions are for Ms. Michelin or for Ms. Magnata. Do you recognize that injuries or physical or psychological problems caused by sexual assault, do you recognize that those can constitute injuries, recognized injuries?
Que nos clients ont des blessures qui viennent des agressions sexuelles.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I believe that our victims have injuries that result from sexual assault, and it's difficult for us to examine these kinds of things because we offer support, we offer care via treatment.
Opportunities for them to be referred to community organizations or to health services or to Veterans Affairs where they would be able to get support for some of their physical presentations that they would have. So we do help that with the referral.
Merci. Encore une fois, je ne sais pas à laquelle d'entre
Thank you. Once again, I'm not sure to which of you I should address this question, but Judge Arbor tabled a very interesting report and a recommendation 5, that sexual assault under the criminal code ought to be, well, not obviously, but ought to be withdrawn from the Canadian Armed Forces and handled according to a normal prosecution in civil criminal court. Is that being applied?
Thank you for that. I will say in terms of recommendation 5, it doesn't fall within the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Center in terms of our mandated piece. What I will say, and what's really important, is that whatever approach is taken, that it remains people-centered and that the individuals that have been affected by sexual misconduct have that choice in terms of where they choose to go in terms of some of the support that they need.
Je comprends, mais puisque vous les rencontrez,
I understand, but because you meet with them, do you have any feedback as to whether or not they follow up on those procedures? Are those cases going to the civil courts or civilian courts?
So again, I can't speak to in terms of the recommendation 5. That would be outside of our particular mandate. But again, I would say that any individual that does come through, please do. We encourage them to call the SMSRC.
Parfait. Actuellement,
Perfect. Right now, we know that there are fewer sexual assaults that are being reported than a year or 2 or 3 years ago.
est-ce que vous constatez
Please
dans
repeat the question. Do you observe in your current duties that there are fewer sexual assaults being reported than 1, 2, or 3 years ago?
So in our particular organization, again, we're dealing with individuals that are coming forward with sexual misconduct incidents or their situation. So ours is not we're not comparing in terms of, what is a year ago in terms of sexual assault. Any individual that comes forward to us is getting the support that they need based on where they are at a given time.
OK. J'ai plus de questions. Merci.
No further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Desilets. And now we are going to invite Mr. Richard Blaney for 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair, and I appreciate all the witnesses for being here today. I am going to be directing my questions towards the representatives from SMSRC. First of all, I'm just wondering, I know that SMSRC, I'm still learning how to wrap my mouth around that. It's not a normal acronym for me. It was established in 2015. So we know that some veterans and their families don't necessarily know about it. I'm just wondering if you could share with the committee more about what you offer a veteran who has experienced a military sexual misconduct.
For the question, wait. So all of the programs that we mentioned, so the 24/7 line, the Response and Support Coordination Program, the Independent Legal Assistance Program, our peer support, our restorative engagement, our grant program are all accessible to women veterans and to members of the Canadian Armed Forces with that. So we encourage veteran women, veterans, CAF members, anyone that has been affected by sexual misconduct within our mandate to come forward. There is support at the 24/7 line to get immediate support from a trained counselor on the line. If more in-depth support is needed, we have the Response and Support Coordination, where an assigned coordinator will be able to help the individual in terms of, medical appointments, accompaniments, just more supportive type of counseling. The Independent Legal Assistance Program is also available to veterans in terms of if someone has incurred eligible legal costs and is requiring some reimbursement, we have that first phase available to them. Our peer support program, we will be launching new formal group sessions in the new year, so we're encouraging individuals to come forward there. If an individual is also part of the class action lawsuit, there is a opportunity for class members to come forward through a restorative process where they can share their stories and help in terms of moving forward on the culture change in the broader defense team. So there's several various programs. Those are just to name a few, but I would encourage individuals that have been victims or have experienced sexual misconduct to come forward to the SMSRC. And if we can't, maybe I'll just add one more thing. If we can't provide the services, we also refer out and have quite a wide network across the country in terms of other organizations and support services that we would refer individuals to.
Yeah. And if I can just add to that, I think, if I can just add to that, sometimes our clients don't know what they want. And I think that's something to state, that if they don't know what they want, but they've had an experience with sexual misconduct, to reach out to us and we can maybe help them find the right program for them. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, like everybody who comes doesn't always have the response and support coordination or go to peer support. But when they talk to our counselors, they'll be able to get a better understanding about what we can do to help them with their journey, whether it's facilitating reporting, whether it's referring them to a case manager to attend appointments. But really, it's individualized care that's based on their particular needs. And so if they just call us, we can help them figure out what's the best thing for them.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So we have heard testimony, and Ms. Kashin is here again today, but we have heard testimony that that the Department of Veterans Affairs is working in partnership with MSRC, SRC. So I'm just wondering, could you please, the representatives from SMSRC, please answer how closely the two departments are aligned and able to talk openly with each other, and if you see any challenges that make it difficult sometimes. I don't say that as a criticism. I think that, what we've heard clearly from a lot of women veterans during this time in the committee is there seems to be a gap because they don't necessarily know about these services. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, is there anything that could be done better to support women veterans in getting the support that you provide that sounds so comprehensive?
So I guess there's two parts to the question. One, in terms of the first piece, in terms of the collaboration with Veteran Affairs Canada. I will say that the peer support program that is being developed right now, the two organizations are working very closely to establish a peer support program that is going to meet, I'm going to say, various needs within that. So there's 3 different lines within that program, the discussion platform, formal group sessions, and those types of things. So that collaboration has been working over 2 years now, very closely to establish those pieces. So that is, I say, in good motion to move forward on that. In terms of, your latter part of the question, in terms of challenges, it's more along the time of ensuring that what is developed is always people-centric and very much centered on what the community needs are. And so that takes time, and that if we're being trauma-informed in our approach to the development of programs, which we are doing very, very clearly and moving forward on that, it does take time, and we want to make sure that we are connecting with veteran women and those that have been affected to make sure that whatever is developed is going to be meeting their needs with it. So I would say one of the biggest challenges is assuring that what we do put in place is trauma-informed, client-centered, and meeting the needs of the client. And so that does take time. So I would say that's the biggest challenge that we probably face.
Thank you for that. And I'm wondering, my last question is there any engagement with having the staff that work with veterans at VAC trained? You talked about being trauma-informed, and we hear a lot of times that veterans are feeling traumatized when they reach out to VAC. So I'm just wondering, is there any work happening there to increase training from your perspective and your wisdom and knowledge base in supporting women who have experienced sexual trauma?
Sid, did you want to take that?
No, I don't want Sid to take that. If I can have you take that.
Sorry, I didn't know if that meant if you were.
No,
yeah, we'll
thank you. I would appreciate that.
So I will say, in terms of our interaction with the team at VAC, it's been a very close relationship, and the individuals that are hired within the program to do the peer support are qualified. Some are, background in social work, so they have already an expertise in some of those areas, and we're very careful within that to make sure that the individuals that are part of the peer support program have that trauma-informed approach. They have strong mental health workers that are all part of what we are developing together as we go forward. So I can speak to where our connection is with it, and so that has been a very positive in terms of the moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Bliney. And now let's start the second round of questions, and I invite MP Kathy Morgenthau for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just in general, one of the things that's negatively affecting all veterans is that their own health records are being kept from them. In this whole process of a smooth transition right from back in 2014, one issue that continually comes up is that they do not have access to their files. Health records cannot be shared with a third party in Canada, so when a member of the CAF releases from the forces and their medical files are sent to VAC, the member cannot access their own files since VAC is interpreting this policy strictly, and they consider the member as a third very recently who was severely gang raped and faced terrible circumstances, took a long time to get back to respond, and eventually it was the pension advocates that hidden away from her in an area that is not accessible, and actually she wasn't even aware that they existed. So this is very disconcerting, especially when we're talking about women and the whole issue around military sexual trauma. We know that there's been a lot of cover-up, and they are not getting the care they need, I believe, because they do not have access to those files. So Dr. Crushane, can you speak to that? And then I would like to get the perspective of the acronym over there. Please, please.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I think everything froze for a while there, so an audio dropped. But with respect to medical records, upon release, all service members, and I went through that process, can access their medical records. They do have to go through the director to access to information and privacy, but they'll get the entirety of their medical record. Medical records are not transferred to Veterans Affairs. And so they go to the National Archives. When the Canadian Forces Health Services, they have to hold them for a certain period of time, and then they're gone to National Archives. So they do not come to us. We only get the information with respect to the condition for which the service member is applying.
Okay. Thank you. I see a huge issue in that approach. I understand that there's things that need to be kept private on the basis of where they were or whatever, but we've been working on this since I've been here, which is 8 years, and there's been no results whatsoever in making these files available to them as they leave. They should be accessible at all times. They're their files. And if they need to be struck for sensitivity issues on deployments or whatever, fine. But we have a case here where a young woman who's now a single mother who has suffered immensely, her files were not together. And I believe that it's as a result of the issues that we're facing here around what women have faced in the armed forces since the beginning of being able to enlist, and this needs to be changed. So if Linda or Shobha, if you're working with a client, do you have the opportunity to assist them to get all of their medical files?
We're both going to jump in at the same time and say absolutely, and please feel free to.
Yeah, I mean, so certainly we have to work within the processes that exist, right? And so we will absolutely help every client to help access their files, but we have to work within the policies and the processes that are existing. So
I see a severe problem with the existing processes then, is where, so none of you in this room, Colonel Rowe, could you respond to that at all? I know you work with OSIS, and I think it's a really important program.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, thanks for the question. Unfortunately, I'm not involved in that area.
I figured that was the case. Sorry, Linda, I interrupted you.
It's the same, right? So for us, it's like we're not involved with the health record or the medical record for an individual within the Department of National Defense, but we definitely would be able to support, as Shobha mentioned, in terms of our counselors to help them through the process to access.
Have you done that?
I believe we have. So our response and support coordinators, who are case managers, they will facilitate some of these processes.
Okay. Could you give us a report to this committee of how many times you have done that and how long it took to get through that process and what that process was? Is that recorded anywhere?
I'll have to check. I'm not sure if the specific, we limit what we include in our case notes to protect the clients. So I want to, so I'm not sure, I'll have to go back to my team.
I'm not asking for details
but
at all,
I can
but
definitely
just,
go back.
did you have to reach out? How did you reach out? How long did it take? And did the client get the information that they needed on their own files? And are they able to keep those files at that point then? Are they theirs in their hands? Do you know?
I'm not 100%. I believe once they have a copy of their files, as Dr. Crushane mentioned, when they release from health from the military, they get access to the health records, and I believe they get a copy of their records. I think, Colonel Rowe, if you can, I think that's.
This young woman did not get a copy of her records. This is where we have a conflict between what is said is done and what actually happens. So, do you think he can, sorry.
I can only talk from personal experience that as a serving member, I can go to the Canadian Armed Forces Health Services Medical Clinic, ask to see any specific part of my medical record. They'll give me a copy.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you need to know what it is that you're asking for?
In general terms, you don't need to have the exact name of a certain form or anything. You could just ask to have your treatment notes from a certain date or.
So what if you asked for all of your files?
I don't know if that office is capable to do that. If they're resourced for that, I think that might have to go through the Access to Information Department. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't understand why our serving members need to go through an access for information when it's their files and they should have access to them.
I could be wrong on that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying.
I mean, in my previous life, I worked at health services as well. We do have policies on informal requests for access to information for health records.
Okay.
But again, whether you get the whole health record, sometimes the health records are very, very big.
Sure.
So again, I think.
Okay.
Thank you. It was really interesting, but I have to interrupt. And thank you, Mrs. Wagenthal. And now let's go to MP Caroline Bennett for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. And I would like to follow up on Ms. Wagenthal's question about access to records. It's in the action plan for all the provinces and territories. So I can't understand why anybody working for the federal government or as a veteran would have to go through access to information when we are asking the provinces and territories to make sure that every patient in this country has access to their records. And then I do understand that once they had access to their records as a serving member, that it would be up to them to show Veterans Affairs what they want to see. But that's how we find errors. And I think what we've heard throughout this testimony is there are serious omissions in what's in their record. So the sooner they could find that omission and correct their document as a serving member, then they can't be told later that because it wasn't in their serving record that they can't be compensated for it because it wasn't in the record. So I think what we're trying to say is that there's a sort of systemic problem. And, you know, I wanted to ask you right out, have you, Ms. Mounier suggested that you've been watching this committee. Have you reached out to everybody who's testified to try and fix their problem?
I've not personally reached out to all of them to address the issues, but I know that the department has reached out to many of them, but I'm not privy to their client cases or that kind of information.
Because it seems that even when we heard from the RCMP Women's Veterans Council, or as you're setting up listening to the people who've had the lived experience, actually they're the experts. And so I guess I'm a bit worried that there doesn't seem to be the feedback loops in terms of the quality assurance, even on gender-based analysis. So I think peer support's fantastic, but who is being involved in the peer support criteria, terms of reference, training, privacy, confidentiality, boundaries, all of that? Who's setting that up, and why is it taking so long?
Sorry, if that was a question to me in terms of the sharing of information or the movement.
No, it was about setting up the peer support.
Okay, my apologies.
Yeah.
So we did consult with people with lived experience to identify
But is there like a formal committee that keeps giving you feedback as to whether it works or not?
So we did have a formal consultation group very early on to identify the various offerings. Right now what we're doing is we are running formal group sessions and getting feedback from the participants to see whether or not we're meeting their needs. So before we launch a formal program, we will collect all the feedback, do the analysis, but have a better understanding of how to do the long-term sustainability of those formal group sessions. And so far, we have received very, I'd say, very constructive feedback, very positive feedback on the way forward. So we do believe that we'll be able to roll that out formally and make it more accessible very shortly.
You've been there since 2015, and it seems a lot of people don't know about you.
Yeah, so in terms of the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Center, one of the programs that we've put in place recently as well is our outreach program. So we are doing a concerted effort. Our team is going out to all the bases and wings across the country, our social media posts. So there is a very detailed outreach process to make sure.
So is that at basic training that people know that you exist? And are the men also being trained?
In terms of outreach, so we do a lot of outreach.
In terms of the consequences of sexual misconduct, are both the women? Yeah, but they are D&D as well. Are they feeding back into D&D? Like, because surely we're in the business of prevention too.
So we do work collaboratively with the other organizations within D&D CAF. We are independent from the chain of command, so we do share and we provide feedback and recommendations and guidance to the rest.
Can you let me know how you feed, like what's improved from some feedback that you've given?
Probably training.
So we have, so previously we were responsible for the development of training programs around prevention, so the Respect in the CAF, the Building Our Future program at the military colleges, as well as a scenario-based e-learning. We've since transferred those over to the Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture, where they will be delivering it as part of the culture initiatives. But we are still involved in the evaluation and sort of the monitoring of the delivery of those programs, and we continue to provide subject matter expertise on all of those. We are finding opportunities to involve ourselves so that we can let people know about our services and about sexual misconduct within the military in and of itself. So as Linda mentioned, we are doing outreach sessions. Some of them are, within pre-deployment opportunities. Some of them are within the schools as well. So we are looking at expanding that reach as much as we can.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bennett. Là, nous allons avoir deux courtes interventions de 2 minutes.
We will hear two brief interventions of 2.5 minutes. I'd like to ask Mr. Luc Desilets, please, to take the floor for 2.5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You do realize that with the many questions you've received, that the record is a problem. I still do not understand that if I'm a military, my medical record does not follow through at Veterans Affairs. Even though I have given all my authorizations, it does not follow. And it is simply archived somewhere. And one of the issues that I see here is that women tell us, that is, women who are victims of sexual assault, that they need to repeat time and time again and again what they have experienced. In my mind, that is so terrible. And this information is circulating, and I understand there are privacy issues at stake, but perhaps if we could flow the information, we could avoid re-traumatizing these victims over and over again. Is that a problem for you, the fact that you do not have access to these records?
Maybe for ours, for the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Center, again, because we're providing support to the individuals as they come forward, it's really that connection between our practitioners and the individuals. So we help them with their choices in terms of what that could look like, whether it's advocacy to gain access to their reports or to seek some other type of care or support there. So for us, it's really about the individual and what their needs are.
Okay. Les organismes avec lesquels vous travaillez, d'abord, sont-ils...
The organizations that you work for, first of all, are they enough? Are there sufficient numbers of organizations who help women who are victims of sexual assault? Question one, or misconduct rather. And secondly, are you able to assess these results? Is there a more scientific side to this work? That is the work that they conduct, the work that they're supposed to conduct, etc. I'd address that question to all of you.
maybe I'll start and then I'll turn over to my colleagues at VAC as well. In terms of, you asked the first part of the question around partners and organizations. So we do work with quite a few across the country. It's part of the resources. Is it enough? I would always say that there's always opportunity to have more across the country to make sure that we're addressing this. It's a societal issue as well in terms of sexual misconduct and just that understanding. So yes, it is definitely, you know, within D&G CAF, but to have local organizations that can also support and address some of this is really a key piece to ensure that individuals that are coming forward are getting that access to services wherever they are.
Thank you, Mr. Desilets. So before I go to Ms. Bliney, I have a quick question to Mrs. Rizzo-Michelin. And let me say it in French. Si vous aviez les dossiers...
I'll say my question in French. If you had veterans' records, that is, veterans who come to see you regarding issues of sexual misconduct, would this assist you in performing your work or in supporting them?
Une bonne question.
It's a good question.
I think initially as individuals come forward, is building that trust between the individual and their practitioner. And whether we have a record or not, I think that's really important in terms of that building of a relationship, that trust. And I think from there, that develops into something where the needs of that individual can then be addressed, whether it's a choice to go to different care or services or to get other type of support within our own organization.
Thank you very much. And now let's go to Ms. Bliney for 2.5 minutes. Please, Ms. Bliney.
Well, thank you so much, Chair. And this time I am going to come to Dr. Cushin. I hope I got your name right. So the last time that you were here to visit our committee, I did ask you a question about how VAC staff, case managers, adjudicators, and healthcare providers and the veteran community can submit complaints about the dissemination of information through VAC. And your answer was to call 1-800 and then your name. That really isn't what I was looking for. So I'm just wondering if you could take this opportunity to maybe explain how that process actually works so that we can make sure it's on the record.
Yes, thank you. I'd say there are different channels. There's not just one channel to bring issues to light to us. And I mentioned my name because I was sincere in saying that people can communicate with me, and some people do communicate with me. Of course, we have our national 1-800 line where people can raise issues. Clients can raise issues with their case managers or veteran service agents or through area offices at any time. And whoever they interact with, some people write to individuals like you to bring issues to light, and then you would bring them to the department and we would address them. So there's not just one door to come to us because we're always, every opportunity, we take every opportunity to improve our processes, our services, and the support that we give to veterans. So that's the best answer.
That's good. That's helpful. I just have a short time. So in the last meeting, you cited that Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Center is a lead for all matters of sexual trauma. And you talked about VAC and Atlas working in collaboration with SMSRC. So can you just clarify VAC's relationship with Atlas? Are you the clinical medicine and GBA plus quality assurance for that group? So for example, if Atlas was to create a training document for family doctors on MST, how would that get coordinated with you and SMSRC?
Thank you. We don't do quality assurance for Atlas. Our relationship with Atlas is they're funded by us through a contribution agreement, but they are a not-for-profit, independent organization. We do work very closely to let them know what our priorities are, what our areas, what we're hearing. They're also very good working with the veteran community. They have reference groups. They get the information directly from them. We have frequent meetings to exchange so that they let us know what products and services they're developing. And if it pertains to SMSRC, then we share that information with them also. So I'd say we're good at keeping the channels of communication open between all our organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Blenay. And now let's go to MP Fraser-Tolmie for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and I'll direct my questions through you, and I want to thank the guests for being here, and for some of you for returning. I'm a little bit concerned, so I'd like to ask this question through you, Chair, to Ms. Michelin. I'm sure there may have been a misunderstanding in a previous question posed by my friend from the block, Mr. Désolé, regarding keeping the track of the numbers of sexual misconduct cases per year. And it was also brought up by my colleague, Mr. Dowdle, in Tuesday's meeting. Is it not concerning that you told this committee that it's outside of your scope to keep track of the number of cases per year when the SMSRC reports annually on the case numbers? And then the media on Tuesday night, while we were actually in this committee, reported on the spike in cases.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for allowing me to clarify. So in terms of the number of sexual assault cases, that is tracked within the Department of National Defense through the Chief Professional Conduct and Culture team with it. So it's not tracked within SMSRC, which is what I was referring to in that with it.
Sorry.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, and if I can clarify.
So, yeah, so we're...
So we keep track of the cases that we see, so the clients that come to us, which is not necessarily the number of sexual assault cases that exist. So there's a bit of a differentiation between the two, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, no, because this is a public committee, and I think people that may be watching this would probably want an explanation. So could you explain that?
So what we keep track of are the clients that we see. So we have over 1,400 clients or people that have come to us seeking support and seeking resources. We are not a reporting center, so we do not receive reports of sexual assault. That is that is sent through the military police, so they keep track of the number of cases that are reported. So the number of cases that are reported, and we know that they're underreporting cases, so we may have people who are reaching out to us who have not officially reported a sexual assault case. We also may have people that are reaching out to us who've had historical sexual assault cases 20, 30 years ago that are now receiving support. So we're very much about the clients that we're providing service to, not, we are interested in the numbers, of course, in terms of the number of cases that are occurring, and we are tracking the trends that are occurring, but we are not ourselves documenting the number of sexual assault cases that are reported.
Okay, so are you saying to me that the numbers that have been quoted in the media are the ones that are from the military police that are actually being dealt with right now? Is that my understanding?
So if you're referring to the Stats Canada survey in terms of the results, let's just back that up. So the Stats Canada survey was conducted within the Canadian Armed Forces, and so that was based on the respondents that would have completed the survey with it. So that number is what is being put forward based on the response rates of the Stats Canada survey.
Okay. Sorry, Chair, how much time do I have left? 2 minutes and a half. Okay. Yeah, it's obviously we're not happy to hear the numbers going up, and it's very, very disappointing. Colonel, I know that my colleague asked a question earlier on about information with regards to equipment and the challenges, and you said at this point, and I appreciated your honesty. It's like being back in the military where you don't know something you don't know and you let people know that you don't know. It's not like that around here, let me tell you. I asked this question to a former military doctor about dealing with clients. What has been the difference that you noticed? Maybe that someone that has suffered from the same injury, a male and a female, what have you noticed as the difference and between the two, and how have you, what's the difference in medical prescription for the two? That's not really clear, is it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I understand the question. I'm just trying to understand how it applies to my work, and I don't think it does. We're not involved in treatment of clients. We support clients, and to answer your question on differences between men and women, I'm not sure if I'm seeing that in the work that we're doing.
Okay, all right. You're kind of stumping me here because you're not really giving me a lot of information. Okay. You know what, Chair, I think I'm going to either pass on, cede my time, or thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolmi. And now I invite MP Sean Casey for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to start with you, Colonel Rowe. In your opening remarks, you referenced the operational stress injuries support service. Is that service available to complainants or victims of military sexual trauma?
Thank you for the question. I would say yes, it is, in the sense that we're established to help clients that are suffering from operational stress injuries, and we see that a military sexual trauma can result in an OSI. So in that sense, we are willing to support our clients that come to us looking for assistance with their OSIs. What we will also do is, if we know that it's related to sexual misconduct, we will offer them or connect them to suggest that they may want to connect with the SMSRC, who maybe we see as more specialized in that area. Certainly our peer supporters aren't necessarily trained in helping, assisting with sexual misconduct cases. So we want to make sure that they're getting the help they need. If we can help them with more general impacts of OSIs and on the impacts on their lives and the social behaviors that results from OSIs, we are more than happy. So in some cases, I believe clients can be seen both programs.
Ms. Rizzo-Michelin, you referenced an independent legal advice program, and I Googled it, and I see that the program is available to support those who have a complaint against them, and also to support complainants in military justice cases and criminal justice cases. So in essence, it's there to provide support for someone who in those proceedings will be a witness. It doesn't provide support to someone who's contemplating a civil action. Is that right?
So a bit of a clarity in terms of that. So the Independent Legal Assistance Program is for those that have been affected by sexual misconduct. They're a victim in a sexual misconduct, and they have sought support through legal services. So for legal information, legal advice, the funding for reimbursement would not support a civil suit. It really is for expenses incurred where they've sought advice from a lawyer in terms of their particular sexual misconduct case.
Okay.
So
one of the most difficult challenges for anyone who's involved with a complicated claim with Veterans Affairs Canada is to draw the link to military service. And we heard a heart-wrenching story here a couple of days ago from someone who was absolutely convinced that the difficulties that she had around childbirth were tied to her military service, but couldn't, it wasn't accepted, I guess is what I'll say, at Veterans Affairs. And the folks at Veterans Affairs, I'm going to come to you on this too. So as a lawyer, I can tell you that the challenge that she's facing is establishing a causal link. This program doesn't answer that.
No.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to go to the folks at Veterans Affairs, and it's probably Dr. Corshane. And I come back to that case, and that's a representative case. We hear it all the time that vets have a challenge with tying things to their military service. They also have an excellent service available to them in the Bureau of Pensions Advocates. For those that practice at the private bar, you can go out and you can hire a doctor to do an independent medical examination and to offer an opinion on causation. Is that something that can be funded by someone who's presenting their case to VRAB or trying to get a pension claim through Veterans Affairs? Because that's the challenge for people like this veteran that was before us this week.
Thank you for that question, and I going to give the caveat that I'm not an expert in the in the Bureau of Pension Advocates, but my understanding is if someone put a claim that was denied and they seek the help of the Bureau of Pension Advocates to go and represent in front of the Veterans Review and Appeals Board, those costs are covered by BPA, as well as seeking the independent medical examination.
Maybe, Ms. Mounier, you can help us with this. Do the costs that are covered include the costs of expert witness or outside independent medical opinions?
Thank you. I can't be for sure, for certain on what BPA does. It's arm's length from the department, but I think Sid is correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
That they do cover the cost of medical expert.
Thank you, Mr. Kissy. And we have time for a third round of questions. But just before, I'd like to ask a question to Colonel Rowe. You are the Director of Casualty Support Management. And my question, there is three parts. First of all, I'd like to know how many are you in that department and what background that those people have to be in that casualty support management, and finally to who you report things that you receive and from people, from veterans. Please.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for Mr. Chair, for the questions. My Directorate of Casualty Support Administration consists of 5 programs and approximately 25 staff. And we're there to lay out the strategic policies that support services to ill and injured members and their families. Those services are provided across the country at transition centers by support staff, services personnel, and that all comes under the umbrella of Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group.
Third you, Colonel. Thank you so much. And now, for 5 minutes, I invite Terry Doddell to lead the third round.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I want to thank each of our individuals for being here today and your testimony. And I want to thank you as well, I'm sure, in your role that you hear a lot of stories and a lot of things that affect you. But in saying that, I know it was brought up earlier by my colleague here about the report that came out from Stats Can. And when you analyze, if it's up 3.5%, and there's less people reporting that want to come forward, to me it speaks to why would they not want to come forward? And we've had a lot of testimony to that in this committee, quite frankly. And your organization seems like it's been called sort of like a biggest insurance company or hard to deal with like an insurance company. So if you had Google reviews, it would be terrible, quite frankly, the organization as a whole. And I'm just wondering, like, when you see that report come out, who is seeing that report? Is there any coming forward like, is there any plan to look into that a little bit further right away with the department? And then the other thing is, I was on National Defense before, and at the time we had the sexual misconduct study, and I'm just wondering, since then it's worse. It actually seems worse, and we had a young reservist that was here saying it was still going on. Pretty much, she's out of it now, but currently, those attitudes and that are carrying on there. So I'm just wondering, like, from that study, from what you've seen, what has been implemented by the department, knowing that we did it was a long study at that time too as well. What did you get out of that to implement into the department that is making a change today?
So from the Sexual Misconduct Support and Resource Center, I can tell you from our organization, again, remembering we are independent from the Department of National Defense and the CAF part of it. For us, we will be looking at the details of that and analyzing it for ourselves to help us in terms of our support programs and how we can improve on those pieces. In terms of the details within the Department of National Defense, that would be the Chief Professional Conduct Chief Professional Culture and Conduct group that will be spearheading and has been spearheading in terms of the culture change within the organization. So I won't speak to the implementation there. That is really within that purview, because that is directly within the for the chain of command and the CAF in terms of that with it. I can tell you broadly that I know that the organization is looking to examine and review the report in detail and use that as one of the tools in terms of informing what is and what could be, what needs to continue to change.
But just to follow up, is there an urgency to the organization, like to feed into what you do? Like seeing it doesn't seem to be improving, and I'm just wondering if they see the urgency that we're seeing from individuals that are coming forward. Just a frustration.
Yeah, so I think it is being addressed within the organization. Again, from our part, from SMSRC, we use that information to help us support and improve our programs. Look at what other services that we'll need to look or offer as part of what we see within that report. But again, it would be another area to get more specifics on what has happened and what is will continue to happen.
Okay, and then one other thing that seems to be common in this study and a lot of the studies when it deals with veterans is just the confusion and the lack of information and the lack of connect between national defense and Veterans Affairs, and when they leave. So many different companies that are part of so many organizations. Could we simplify the process somehow to make it simpler? A lot of them are suffering from PTSD and they're frustrated. Paperwork, just the amount of it's confusing even for me when my staff and I have to get a hold of somebody.
I think we can't speak necessarily to the processes, but this is one of the reasons why we have our response and support coordination program, is to help navigate these individuals through some of these complex processes. And certainly, we do try to take the opportunity to provide feedback when there are some challenges that we repeatedly face. And these are only, again, a very small segment.
Are you having success at some of those challenges? Like when you bring it forward, this is a problem, because we hear a lot of them. It seems to be the same for a long period of time. Are you getting any action?
I'm not sure I can speak specifically to that. What I can say is that we're at least aware of some of the challenges and we're communicating that, which I think is a good first step. But I think you'd know that things take time to change, and it's not as easy just to redraft a policy, right?
That sounded like a politician answer more than a regular answer to me. So, yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dodell. And excuse me, yeah.
Permission to continue with the bells ringing. Can I say maybe offer 10, 15 minutes until we get to our 5:30 usual closing time?
Is that a 30-minute? Yes, 30 minutes. So I have to ask for unanimous consent to 10 minutes. Is that okay? Oh, great. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So let's go. And, well, For 5 minutes. Okay, so we're going to have 3 interventions. Mr. Miao for 5 minutes and one from Mr. Desilets and Ms. Blaney. So, Mr. Miao, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today, officials for being here today. I'd like to, in your opening remark, you mentioned about some of the great programs that supports our veterans. And when a veteran is released, how do, I guess, each department inform him or her on the program and services that is available? Maybe if Ms. Michelle can share that with us.
So for us, in terms of the SMSRC, again, it's our outreach program, so it's through our social media. If the individual was already seeking services, already part of our clientele group, that would continue, whether they're active or an active CAF or continuing on with it. We do some distribution through BAC as well in terms of some of the programs that we offer. They will use their social media at times to reflect what our programs and services are.
And over to you online, Ms. Munir.
Sure, thank you. We are working with the Canadian Armed Forces, I'm sure this committee has heard before, to improve the transition process, whether that is a VAC case manager at the appropriate time of release, works with a CAF case manager to ensure individuals are aware of the benefits and services that they're currently receiving from the Canadian Armed Forces and ensure that those continue or similar programs continue after release. We have veteran service agents who conduct transition interviews to make sure that we understand the issues or challenges or opportunities of releasing individuals, make sure they're aware of the benefits and services and programs that are available to them through Veterans Affairs Canada. It offers us an opportunity to better understand their needs, whether it be treatment they're receiving from the Canadian Armed Forces, and we can work to make sure that upon release, those benefits and services or treatment benefits are in place. I'm not sure if my 2 colleagues may want to offer additional information.
I would just say it's not just medically releasing members, but every service member releasing will get a screening and a trend for evaluating their preparedness for transition and making sure that everything is in place before they do release, and also encouraging them to open a MyVac account through which they can receive a lot of information. Thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing that with us. And I also like to continue my question with Ms. Meunier. What is VAC doing to include women in commemoration? Because in the past, we've heard from women veterans that whenever they wear a medal, they're not being recognized. The assumption is your spouse that served in the military in order to get that medal. Can you share with us what is VAC doing in the commemoration piece?
Sure, thank you. And that we've heard those stories as well. Unfortunately, as part of commemoration recognition, certainly at all of our events, initiatives, and activities, women veterans are well represented in all of those. As I mentioned in my opening remarks as well, we have built more learning modules and updated previous learning modules that are pushed out to educators across the country. This year alone, 5 million learning modules were shared with educators across the country. The reason why I flag that is it tells the story. It's important for youth to understand and broader communities to understand the impactful service of Canadian women veterans. As well, looking to capture their stories. We certainly, on our website right now, there are many stories of the experiences of women veterans, and we are looking to increase that number. I mentioned again 19 in the last several weeks, and we want to do that. Part of it is ensuring women veterans see themselves as veterans. We've heard a number who don't see themselves in that same space. And the more that we promote the service, the effort, the courage that women veterans have demonstrated and amplify that, the more that it will resonate with communities. And so that's part of our mission within the commemoration division, is part of our emphasis on modern veterans with a significant emphasis on women.
Thank you. I believe my time is
Thank you, Mr. Miao. Et maintenant, Monsieur Luc Desilets.
And now we have Mr. Luc Desilets, and you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two observations to make, and they're very personal. First, I hear that there are links and communications between veterans and the CAF, but this is not what we hear here with our witnesses. There's like a disconnect when you leave the armed forces and you become a veteran. It's like a break. So I really need to be convinced that it'll be different in the future. I want to refer to the numbers that were talked about earlier. There's been an increase in sexual attacks, and I think that all the stakeholders really should look into this, because is this really an increase? I don't have numbers here, but is it simply because there are more women that are actually accepting to say that they have been victim of sexual attacks? Maybe there aren't anymore. It's just more of them are disclosing it. So we have to be very careful with the language that we use. This has a direct impact for you. I mean, if there's really an increase in sexual attacks, well, then you're going to have more organization to help with the aftermath. I have two questions after those comments. Mrs. Courchaine, we have a researcher who came and testified a few weeks ago, and she said that women in the armed forces have equipment that is so inadequate that at times they had to resort to surgery just so they could continue in the armed forces. So, for example, we have women who have their breasts removed because the equipment is not adapted. It causes injuries. So, Dr. Courchaine, have you heard anything of the sort? Thank you for this question. Actually, I would tell you, as a doctor in the armed forces, I've been working in there 30 years. Personally, I haven't seen it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because there are women who have asked for breast reductions, and not for equipment reasons, but because they had, backaches and other things like this. But it is completely possible that they didn't want to admit that it was because of the equipment. So I absolutely do not doubt that some women have taken this road. I would tell you, it's not only in the Canadian armed forces. I think it is a reality in pretty much armed forces all around the world. And if we look at our allies, we would probably find situations that are similar, because it is true that equipment they were designed. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the word. Okay, they were designed particularly for women based on a certain height and certain size and masculine features and not feminine features, for sure. Thank you very much. And your French is very good, by the way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Desilets.
Invite Ms. Bliney, 2.5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you. And if I can come back to Ms. Michelin, I just wanted to ask about the DND and CAF sexual misconduct class action lawsuit. We know that during the final settlement, it was agreed in the federal court, and one of the sections that it had was tasking DND, and in particular, SMSRC, to run a restorative engagement program. In October, we did have a witness, Dr. Aiken, who spoke to the committee about her concerns about how slow the startup of the program is. I'm just wondering if you have any updates on this and if there are other restorative engagement processes awaiting for veterans.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. In terms of the restorative engagement program, I can tell you that there's going to be some enhancements that will be happening in a short, I'm going to say within the next few months in terms of that. What was really important in this particular program is to make sure that the restorative process that is put in place was going to meet the needs and be done in a way that was not going to cause re-traumatization or any of those kinds of things for the individuals with that are part of the class action suit that are come forward in there. The number of individuals that have come forward is significantly high, but I will say that the program has been developed and we've been seeing already some very positive results, both from the class members that have been involved and from the defense side that have participated in it. So we're looking forward to the enhancements over the next few months that we should see an increase and a quicker, I will say, involvement of class members and the defense team in terms of the moving forward. I will say as well that although class members indicated that they were interested in the restorative engagement program, sometimes it takes time for the class member to be ready for whatever the engagement is going to be. And so initial thoughts were that it would be significantly quicker for the class members that were already initiated into the program, but that has taken more time, not because of the delays in the program, but because the individual just needed more support before an engagement could take place. So again, lots of good progress, and we're looking forward to the enhancements over the next few months.
And how is that reported back so that people can see that? Because one of my concerns is that there's a sense of distrust. And so seeing success, I think, would help many women come forward.
So one of the things that we do from our organization is direct contact with the class members through social media and information sessions, where we've had a couple this past over the last year, just to let people know where we're at with the program and what they can expect. I will say that all individuals that have put forward to be part of the restorative engagement program will have been contacted by the end of December 2023, so in the next few weeks, at least an initial contact just to engage their interest still in participating. And then, like I said, some enhancements will be starting in the new year, and hopefully the class members that have been waiting will be able to have access to the services quicker.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Blinet. Mesdames, Messieurs.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to see you all this afternoon for this discussion within the confines of our studies on the experience of women veterans. I want to thank you in the name of all the members of the committee and in my name. So for the Minister of Defense, we had Madame Lizo Richard, Chief Operating Officer, Sexual Misconduct Support Center, Madame Shobar Ranganathan, Director of Programs and Service, Sexual Misconduct, as well as Colonel Peter Rowe, Director, Casualty Support Management. And online from the Department of Veteran Affairs, we had Amy Meunier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Commemoration and Public Affairs Branch, Ms. Pamela Harrison, Senior Director, Engagement and Events, and Dr. Sid Koshen, Chief Medical Officer. Once again, thank you so much for your participation. I also want to thank our technicians, our clerk analysts, as well as our interpreters, even if we can't see our interpreters. And I would like to ask the member of the committee, are we okay to adjourn? Then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.